Hey, Lamb Dog, it's barking madly. Yeah, that's my politics and yabbering with a bunch of people about WROL and all the other stuff. The sewing circle. That's barking madly. My other channel is gear and guns and all that stuff. That's Shooting Nerd. Just want to keep the two separate. If somebody wants to light a fire or start flaming me or whatever, they can do it here. Just keep the other channel where I'm talking about cameras and all that other crap. Keep that out, apolitical or whatever. Anyway, at the end of your video, you brought up the question about why do we try to spread the word and whatnot. And for me, two reasons. One, I provide stuff for my friends and family so that they can be as prepared as they can be. And since I've got access to stuff that's cheap and easy, like the 55-gallon water drums, I provide that for them so that there's as little thought involved with them as possible, as little effort involved with it as possible. They just find a place to park it, put a quarter cup of bleach in it, 55 gallons of water. There's the bung wrench, there's the the Tygon tubing, to siphon the water out, and they're good to go. They don't have to think about it. Clearly, I can't necessarily, prep food for everybody, but, you do what you can. That's friends and family. And also, for most of them, they don't live all that close to me, Closest friends are about 15, 20 miles away. And family I'm in Southern California. I've got family in Las Vegas and family in Phoenix, so there's not a whole lot I can do for them. Also, when I get married shortly, I'll be having family in Moreno Valley, which is about 50 miles away. So, I prep for those folks because it's the right thing to do, and I want them to do I want them to be in the best situation they possibly can. The reason I help other people out is rather selfish. I want them to be as self-sufficient as they can so they don't come banging on my door and I'm not set and 3 weeks into a shit hits the fan situation, earthquake is my major concern here. I don't want them knocking on my door begging for water and food 3-4 days or a week into it, where I have to either I have to give up my limited resources or I have to be a real bad guy. And the more self-sufficient people are, the better chances I have of being able to survive as well. I mean, I'm not the best person when it comes to having neighbors and all that stuff. I mean, part of it is, I live in a kind of nasty area. A lot of people in where I live, I don't really want to get to know all that well. And the few people I do, we have just very different lives, very different personalities. We get along, but we're not friends. And there's want people to do okay, but don't really have what I would call a community. So I don't want to have to make tough decisions or put myself in a tight situation trying to help them out. So that's the other reason why I'm interested in trying to pass the word along about being ready to take care of yourself. As for the Doomsday Prepper TV show, in my opinion, from the way I see it, they are showing the most edgy, the most discussion-worthy stuff, which is mainly guns, gas masks, people showing how to do, circle the wagons and all this other stuff. I mean, if you look at all the videos that Southern Prepper 1 has done, he's got an awful lot of stuff about just basic day-to-day stuff. Here's how to prep your food. Here's how much food to get. Yeah, he talks about guns and all that other stuff, but there's a lot of day-to-day stuff that's not all this, I don't know, provocative, I guess is a good word. Because, a lot of people, for better or for worse, don't like guns. They don't like the thought of violence. And maybe, getting them food and water is maybe just fattening the sheep up for somebody else, but, if you can get them to just think about the non-confrontational stuff, have batteries on hand, have water on hand, have food on hand. And the Doomsday Prepper type show, to me, speaks to a completely different group of people. Either it's speaking to the folks that like to point and laugh, or the folks that are already going to be buying into it anyways. And maybe I'm naive in thinking that I think a lot more people would be willing to get into the prepper type of lifestyle, or the prepper thoughts in terms of, food, water, and all the basics, if it weren't presented in such a, like I said, a fantastical or such a showy type of way, where you don't have to have guns to be a prepper, or to be ready. You don't have to have tactical discussions. You don't have to have all that stuff. Clearly, if things go as bad as they could, that type of stuff is the right thing to do, or it's at least something to consider. But, mutual defense agreements aren't the first place to start. That it's getting a supply of water, medication, first aid, and food. And when you look at the show with Southern Prepper 1, they sit there talking about, oh, he's got good defense and all this other stuff, but he's too high profile or whatnot. And they completely ignore all that, to me, the way I saw it, they completely ignore some of the basic stuff. And, that's the way they were with a lot of the folks that they did on those shows. I mean, there's one of those shows where the prepping couple was a 50 or 60-year-old woman and her transsexual girlfriend. That was basically just a freak show. I mean, great on them. That's coming out the wrong way. It's fantastic that they're looking to protect themselves and take care of themselves. But the choice of people they have, most of the people that I would guess that watched that show were going to be spending most of their time laughing at their inability to store meat, or their choice to store meat in the first place, or the fact that it's a lesbian couple where it's sort of lesbian, though, because one of the women is actually used to be a guy and has to take hormones, and that's one of the big things they have to prep for. The story's getting lost in all the fluff and frou-frou crap that, being ready to take care of yourself is a good thing. So, I think it just, the shows themselves, from what I've seen, they have some good opportunity to show some good stuff and to get people involved. But I think they're turning off a lot of people that could be or would be willing to be more prepared. And they sit there and instead emphasize some of the more fringy kind of stuff. And heck, I got into this whole, watching the whole sewing circle and all that stuff because I ran across Hibernian, an EMP. That's honestly one of my biggest concerns in terms, I think natural disaster for me is earthquake. Man-made disaster I think that I'd have to deal with would be an EMP as far as the most likely. And, or I guess it could be also natural. But, so we all find this attitude our own way. And maybe I'm being naive. Maybe most folks, doesn't matter how you put it on a plate and serve it to them, they're not going to listen or they're not going to partake of it. And maybe I'm being too mean to people and figuring that if it's, maybe they would look at the Doomsday Preppers and the other shows, and maybe that is more mainstream than I realized. I don't know. So, at any rate, thanks for the little chit-chat and response. Curious to see what everybody else thinks. And like I said, one thing I did want to ask you, do you consider yourself a prepper? My guess is yes. I think most of the folks that are in the sewing circle would, although I kind of get the feeling that Mike over at Shall Not Be Infringed, I don't really think he is. I think he's prepared by nature, but I don't think he really considers himself a prepper, at least from what I remember seeing and hearing. Anyhow, cheers.